Hello, this is Blue Noser Hoser with a virtual world deck profile from Master Duel. I use this deck to get Plat 1 in Season 2, and it's a deck I use quite frequently in the TCG, but I never got to experience Calamities before it was banned, so I just couldn't help but put this deck together to see what it was like. So, getting into it, you have 3 of all the hand effects, and 3 Foolish Goods as just 3 more hand effects, because you can send King Long. He's half maxed out on these, because you essentially aren't winning if you aren't resolving hand effects. So there you go. And 2 Neon, you need 2, so 1 can put back the other. And then 2 E-Telly, you'd run 3 if you could. And then 1 Ogre. This one's a little weird, but you can E-Telly out Ogre versus Appaloosa. And when they try to negate your hand effect, you can Ogre the Appaloosa. It'll be destroyed, and because it's not on field, it can't lose attack. And because it didn't lose attack, it can't negate. So there you go. And it's a sneaky little way to turn 1 slot into 3 interruption slots. Moving on, you have 3 Kowloon, 3 King Long, 2 Chuche, 1 Jianwu. It's just the ratios you have to run, essentially. Then 3 Maxi, 1 Nibiru. This one's a little weird. I think Maxi is just really good versus every deck ever, basically. True Draco might be the one exception. Even versus Eldritch, if they have, Conquistador Sanguine, that's 2 draws. So, there you go. The 1 Nibiru is just so I have a non-zero chance of drawing into it off of Max C versus combo decks. It's mainly just for my sanity. There's not a real reason behind it, but I thought it was fine. On my road to Plat, I don't think I ever actually resolved Nibiru once, but it was there. It made me feel better about sitting through Leerless combos. But this deck being essentially a combo deck itself, it actually has the potential to break boards, which I think is a really good part about it. It's also just really good versus back row decks in general, because you don't really lose to any floodgates at all. Skill drain, there can be only one or just cards this deck can run. And all of your cards just don't do anything on field, so they just get their full effects when you ever use their hand effects under a lot of things. And you have a lot of colorful monsters in your extra deck to play through a lot of the different scenarios. So I didn't think you had to run any more than the 1 Nibiru. But yeah, I think you still have to run Maxi. Then 2 Gamma Driver as the other hand trap. I think Gamma's really good in this deck specifically. If you open Gamma plus either of these, you can't lose basically. If they hand trap your hand effect and you Gamma it, they have just lost. Gamma can convert into Crystal Wing if you use Stardust plus Gamma. And then Driver's just a level 6, which is good for Synchros, and you can make M7 with it. Plus, you can E-Telly out Gamma, so there's that. You can make Crystal Wing that way too. I think it's really good in this deck. Then 3 Desires. I think if your deck can support Desires, you should run the maximum legal copies. I've always said that, but it's a card that takes 0 setup, and it's a +1. Yeah, it has a cost of banishing 10, but it's when you open it in your hand, there's no other thing that you have to do other than press the button to put it on the field. Or even a virtual world hand effect, you have to have something to target. So you have to use 2 cards to use it. And that's basically true for all of the virtual world cards. They all have to target something. Neon doesn't, none of these cards do anything by themselves. Where Desires, you could argue it doesn't do anything by itself either, but it's a +1, and it's just free. Especially in this deck because you have Neon to put back stuff if you need it. And then the last card's Metal Foes Fusion. So when your hand effect does resolve and you get to activate King Long, Goods is suddenly a lot worse because you don't really want to be sending the traps. But it's still a card in your hand, so you have to do something with it. So I decided to put it in Fusion, and it just turns Goods in the upstart at that point. It's fine with Zulkin because you can set Goods, and then it's a normal spell, so you can activate it afterwards, so that you still have a card in the hand to do something with. Because this deck does have to discard a lot between King Long, Jianwu, you have Coral Dragon type stuff. But, like, it's fine to open too because you have a lot of discards. You can do any of those. You can even like attach it to Zeus, or like send it to the grave with the Zeus. So there's little funny things like that. But that's the main deck. Moving on to the extra, you have Zulk and Crystal Wing. I think you just like have to run this package in this deck. And then Charge Warrior and Coral Dragon are really important because they turn. Well, okay, so theory wise, any extra deck summon, with like very few exceptions, are minuses. You use tuner, non-tuner to make one monster. So a card like this that then draws a card on summon, it makes it not a minus. You use 2 cards to like have 2 cards, but you converted like 2 random things into some like a big body, or like 2,000 is like fine. Plus, its other effect is like good. It can attack all special summon monsters. Like sure, it's only 2,000, but like if they like scapegoat you, or like have like a Hakero, a Conquistador, stuff like that. Like there's a lot of like just random boards that it clears. And then Coral Dragon's removal, but it's important because you have 2 things that draw a card. One of them is a non-tuner, one of them is a tuner. So there you go. Then Juju. It's another non-tuner level 6 you can use for that. It's also important because you can revive it with like Lao Lao. And you can like target it because it's a virtual world. But it comes up in a lot of matchups where like it's just unoutable, or at least in simplified game states, where they can't kill it with battle or card effects. And it's just 24 and it just sits there. It's just really good for that. Plus it sends, it doesn't destroy, so it's really good removal that way. So I think this card's like really good. And it also helps you out Rivalry Gozen, because you can make it with Nia and Lulu, which are both wind psychics. So it's good for that too. Again, this deck just like doesn't lose to back row. You have like Tuche to out face up, like Floodgates. Then you have these to clear just anything. You also have like Croc and like Break Sword, I guess. Oh, and Vermilion's like really good for removal, and Zeus kind of. But yeah, moving on. Cloud, Croc are basically in here strictly because Calamities is in my deck. Otherwise, this would just be like anything else. But like, Croc comes up randomly because of its other effect to destroy a card, quick effect. But it's like super minus to do that, so you don't want to do that most of the time. It's mainly just important because it draws a card, so again, you're just not minusing when you make this card. Cloud Castle can bring back Vermilion, and Vermilion is a soft once per turn, so there's that. It comes up every once in a while. And then Vermilion's like really good in this deck. 27 is just solid, and it's just removal. And you also like target itself to add back banished tuners, being Lulu, Lao Lao, and I guess like Ogre, Gamma. It's like may as well add back those. May as well have a card in hand, you know. But if you don't already know, you can also do like when you open Li Li King Long, you can go Li Li target King Long, send Zhan Lu Lulu. Use Zhan Lu, summon Lulu, make Vermilion with those 2. Vermilion, banish Lulu, target itself. Then effect, add back the Lulu. Then you have Lulu target King Long, and then you can send Chuche, add Gigi. Then Gigi can add the Lulu, send King Long, which gets you the Lao Lao. So it gets you to all the hand effects through just that little thing. So it's good for that too. I think it's one of the better cards in the extra deck. And Shen Shen's just very good. It's basically a dragon ruler if you think about it. It revives itself, and it revives itself every turn anyway. Plus, every once in a while it matters because you banish 2 things, so it immediately makes Juche live. And there's certain matchups where it's just like the best monster ever printed, like versus Eldritch and Draco. Just all their stuff gets banished indefinitely, and it's just really hard to deal with in that deck because you have to go like Conquistador pop it, and then also Hakero banish it, or it just like comes back again. Versus Draco specifically, if you summon this card, you actually like can't lose because none of the Dracos get over it. Like Dynamite crashes with it, it diagrams up, but all of their traps will get banished, so they just can't pop it. They have like Skill Drain, I guess, but you have like Juche for it. And again, just like Skill Drain just doesn't do anything at all versus this deck, so there you go. Moving on to the XYZs, you have Gossip Shadow Breaksword for the rank 3s. I think both of these are important in their own right. Breaksword just being really good removal that you can access pretty easily. If you have like an Eden Grave, any of these normal summons just becomes Breaksword. You can pop your own stuff, which matters sometimes. And it's 2,000, which like it is not bad. I think Gossip Shadow is a little weird. You mainly only make it when you're doing something that is ending the game, being like attacking them or like making calamities. Because it's like not that great because they get to draw a card too, but I think it's still important enough for run just to insulate your plays. Moving on to M7, I run 2 of these. I normally don't like run 2, but because you can't run Gaia in this deck because of space, because of these 2 things. I don't like Fan or Utopia Beyond. Like Fan might be fine, but I just don't like that you can't like make Gaia afterwards to make Zeus better. And M7 effectively does the same thing as Fan like a lot of the time, and it's usually like better. So I thought it was fine. There's a world where one of these becomes Fan though. Then Calamities is a card that exists. Weird. And like same with Zeus. This card is actually obnoxious. But yeah, that's the deck. If you have any questions about it, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.